Hello again, everybody. Time for episode 012 of Coco and Daltz. I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Daltz.
As you might have gathered.
You've really got your radio voice going tonight.
Thank you very much. That's because we had a fabulous meal today, and I'm all ready to go.
Daltz took over the blue apron duties tonight, so he's feeling like a chef.
Well, blue is my favorite color.
Oh, that's true. Blue is your favorite color.
And I like to cook, so I should wear the blue apron all the time.
You totes should. All right, from now on, that's your duty.
That's my go-to uniform. When I go to the grocery store, I'm going to wear my blue apron.
Hopefully with other stuff.
Hopefully with other stuff. If the weather ever gets warm, maybe not.
If you're in the Northeast with us, you're looking at potentially 6 to 12 inches of snow on Wednesday, so that's what Daltz is alluding to. I would just like to say that the first day of spring is tomorrow.
As we tape this.
Tuesday, March the 20th, and I refuse to accept more cold weather. I'm done with it. It's spring in 24 hours or less. It's supposed to be warm. I don't know why Mother Nature is effing with us, but she is.
So you were talking about that we're going to have another storm on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. We could have played that last week, and we could have said that the week before.
That's
we could
true.
have said that the week before.
How many nor'easters have we had, and how many weeks consecutively at this point?
And how many do we want?
None.
So
can we move to Malibu?
Yes. Let's
Yay!
Do it. We are in poof. We're in Malibu.
Yay! I'm in my bikini. It's awesome.
Yes, that is awesome. So here we are talking about fun and games.
Just a quickie tonight for you folks.
Just a quickie, because we finally went to see 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri.
No, it's Missouri. It's got an I on the end. It's Missouri.
Okay. So we went to see that movie because we are all about you, the listener. We thought we would immediately catch you up on what we thought of this movie, because we know that you are dying to know.
We're going to catch you up on a movie that came out like 8 months ago and that has already been nominated for multiple awards.
And has not won a lot of them.
Well, it did actually win a lot of the awards going into the Oscars. It just actually only won a couple major acting categories, I believe.
Frances McDormand.
And Sam Rockwell.
So, what, Coco, did you think of 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri?
Am I going to have to punch you in the face?
No violence on the podcast.
Well, speaking of Oscars being won for acting performances, I did think the acting was pretty stellar across the board.
Yes.
Frances McDormand, who you know I loved in Fargo.
Well, you loved Fargo, too.
Yeah, Fargo wasn't
as
good.
A creation.
It wasn't good. She was actually really good. I enjoyed her performance. Sam Rockwell was good. Woody Harrelson, I thought, was really good. I'm surprised he didn't get more
love.
Yeah, more love for that. I mean, the major roles in that movie, I thought, were acted very, very well. So hats off to that.
Hats off. That's our new award. It's the Hats Off Award.
I bought Daltz for Christmas, or should I say Santa got Daltz for Christmas.
I thought it was Santa that got it for me.
A Trailer Park Boys Sunnyvale Trailer Park trucker hat. So that's going to be our new award, the Coco and Daltzy's Trailer Park Boys trucker hat. So hats off.
Hats off. And in tribute to the Hats Off Award, I do not have the hat on right now.
Oh, awesome.
The hat is off.
All right. So what did you think, Daltz?
So I wrote a review on cocoanddaltz.com.
You did?
Which some people might have visited. I'm sure it shows up in Google and many other searches when people are just, noodling around on the internet. All of a sudden it'll pop up because we're spending all that money on marketing.
I clearly visited it.
But we're living together, so you don't need to go there. So I agreed with what you said, and I also said that Woody Harrelson, always reliable Woody Harrelson.
Who would have thought that simpleton Woody from Cheers in the 80s would turn out to be so versatile and and have such depth.
And also, I'm always leery of people who play characters that also have their same name.
Yeah, right?
Because really, how much acting are you doing?
Right.
Woody, play a dumb guy. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, like, is he dumb or what is he? But yeah, you're right. He's really come a long way. I liked him. I liked him in Natural Born Killers 100 years ago.
Wow.
Played a really interesting, obviously, title role in the Oliver Stone movie that was whacked out. And I've seen him in a lot of movies, and he's really good. I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of he should have earned a little bit more. He brought some nuance to that role, not taking too much and not spoiling too much for the people who haven't seen the movie. But he's in a complicated position in that movie, in a torn sort of position. He's the sheriff who is called out on the billboards, and his life takes a turn that complicates the storyline. But he plays a very sympathetic character, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so too. I actually, in the beginning of the movie, I thought he brought more depth and nuance to his character than Sam Rockwell did. Mm-hmm. But the fact that he's only in maybe a third of it? To half of the movie tops, like, obviously there's going to be more room for Sam Rockwell to grow his character. Which, speaking of, not to interrupt,
Sam Rockwell,
I'm sorry. I know a lot of people really didn't buy the Sam Rockwell character redemption arc. Mm-hmm. I semi-bought it just because he was a cop, and cops do still want to solve the case. They want to get to the bottom of what happened. So right. I semi-bought it in terms of I can see him sitting at a bar getting loaded and overhearing a conversation and thinking, this is it, I've cracked the case. Like, I didn't really buy him turning because of the note that Woody Harrelson's character left him.
Yeah.
But
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. But I did semi-buy it just based on the fact that his character was a cop, and it would have maybe been likely that he would have wanted, regardless of anything else that happened, to get to the bottom of this crime.
I, sort of talking about the movie in general, I thought that when I came out of that movie, you and I had an immediate download, rapid reaction ourselves.
We just should have taped that conversation.
We could have sat at the back of the theater after the movie was over.
Yes.
And once the guy who was eating with his mouth open left, so that it didn't pollute the audio,
right?
We could have talked about it. But the thought that I wasn't quite sure what the movie wanted to be.
Right. It was kind of all over the place.
It was. Was it about racism? Was it about equality? Was it about homosexuality? Was it about grown men living with their mums? Like, what was it about? And obviously, the redemption arc and all that sort of stuff was the main backbone of the movie.
Right.
But it was a statement movie, but what was the statement about?
Right. Like, I get the message of deeply flawed people finding healing in each other and among each other, but at the same time, like we said immediately when the movie was over, doesn't want to be a movie about deeper social issues. Does it just want to be a crime thriller? Does it want to be a farce? Because there were a few like kind of funny moments.
There were some farcical moments, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell is this doing in here? Like, so it was just kind of, it didn't know what it wanted to be, and it was kind of all over the place.
Yes.
And I enjoyed it overall, but it was very messy.
It stuck with me, too. The movie, I was thinking about the movie long after I left the theater, which, in a good way, it wasn't like it was a haunting kind of thing. That, to me, speaks to the craft and the piece of art that it is that it stayed with me, and I was thinking about it, thinking about the characters. The characters are definitely different, and they were definitely, to me, vibrant and alive, and
not what you usually see.
Not a cookie cutter kind of. They were complicated, which we all are. People are complicated characters, right? So I bought that again, but just for some reason the sum was not what didn't add up from all the parts. Like there was not something there that, even though all the parts were really good together, I wasn't sure coming out of that movie.
Yeah, and I will say, speaking of the characters all being complicated and stuff, aside from Frances McDormand, pretty much all the female characters were incredibly flat and two-dimensional and completely lacked any kind of depth at all.
They weren't very complicated.
Right, like the 19-year-old girlfriend of Frances McDormand's ex-husband, and even the secretary, I guess, at the Billboard advertising agency.
She was a bit of a bubblehead.
Yeah, they were just very, very stereotypical, like you said, bubbleheads, and just no depth, no character development whatsoever. And it's hard to, I guess, have character development in a character that has
not on
such
screen very long.
Limited screen time.
Yeah.
Like the advertising secretary is coming in and handing the guy the papers and then being like, oh yeah, a kid dropped this off, and then walking out. But
yeah, I agree. I wonder if part of that was balanced because Frances McDormand's character was so very strong.
Right.
And to the point of being too strong where she kicks the students who potentially threw a pop can at her car, over the top strong. And so maybe there was a balance issue there. And I think you could also submit that Sam Rockwell's character was a bit on the simple side.
Right.
But he turned into more than that. He did have some redemption, and he did take a good look at himself in the movie.
And that's another thing that I had a problem with in the movie. And I know that I said I enjoyed the movie overall, and I did, but there were just so many holes in it and so many flaws in it. It's just very easy to critique it. Like, everybody gets away with everything in that town. Like, there is no...
There's no, consistency in law enforcement there.
Right. Like, Frances McDormand is literally firebombing the police station. I don't remember seeing her put on gloves, so there had to be some kind of forensics with her fingerprints on the Molotov cocktail bottles. And she was at the scene of the crime when the fire department rolled up, and yet, no, we can't.
Pretty easy going.
All right, well, the midget gave her an alibi, so I guess that called it. And yeah, just there was no consequence. And she drilled the hole in the dentist's finger with the drill that was supposed to be used to take her tooth out. And Woody Harrelson was like, "Let her go." Like, there's just no consequences for anything in this town. It's
but
very
maybe that's
unrealistic.
part of maybe that was part of the point too, in the fact that Frances McDormand's daughter was murdered and raped and died horribly. Maybe that was underlying the fact that there's no justice in this town. There's just no... I mean, I just thought about that now, but it could be a part of the... Maybe it's a complicated way of presenting this town, or maybe it's just... There's holes.
Right, or presenting the American justice system as a whole. Like,
which is timely in this movie, right? So there are two other things I want to talk about regarding this movie.
Let's do it.
First of all, I Googled Ebbing, Missouri.
It's not a place.
It's not a place.
Right.
So, and second of all, not only was the movie placed in a fictitious place, set in a fictitious place, but it was filmed in North Carolina.
It did look very much like Southern Missouri, though.
It did.
I have to say, having grown up in Southern Missouri for the first 8 to 9 years of my life, it did look a lot like Southern Missouri. I was very surprised when I found out it was not filmed there.
So I'm wondering why, I can understand if it was filmed in British Columbia or something like that with the exchange rate, but why would you film in North Carolina as opposed to Missouri? You got to think that there would be incentives in Missouri to film there, too.
I think North Carolina probably has a stronger film commission, maybe.
Oh.
I don't know really how much stuff is actually filmed in Missouri.
All right. Well, actually, that's an interesting angle that we can take, because I was looking up the other day on the best movies filmed in St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, no way, really?
Yes.
Wow.
And one of them was, well, number one, it was a ranking, because everything's about the rankings these days.
That's true. It's all BuzzFeed related.
Yeah. And the best movie filmed in St. Louis, guess what it was? Do you want to guess?
I don't know.
That's not it. It is Escape from New York.
No way. That was filmed in St. Louis?
Yes, and I did know that because there's a scene where there's a fight. Snake Plissken is involved in the fight, and it's supposed to be like a Madison Square Garden kind of thing. It's actually Union Station back in the day before it got renovated.
That is really sad that St. Louis doubled for a post-apocalyptic New York.
So that's why...
An Escape from New York.
St. Louis was famous because it took place there, or it set itself up as being this horrible New York.
I mean, no offense to St. Louis. I have spent much of my adult life in St. Louis, but Union Station is pretty much a pit. So
no, it's nice. I've been there. It's nice. It's abandoned, but it's nice.
Exactly. It's kind of a pit.
And so one of the other movies that was on that list, this is a way tangent from what we were talking about.
What's that?
But this is just proving that movies can be filmed in Missouri.
Okay.
Up in the Air.
Well, but that was only filmed at the airport, though, right? Like,
no, all the other scenes were there, too. They just
really?
pretended to be other places.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
I learned it from that list.
So Clooney was living it up at the downtown Four Seasons for 2 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were in the loo.
Wow.
So
Cray.
you heard it here first on the Cocoa Adults podcast.
You learn something new every day.
So were we done talking about 3 billboards?
I don't know, are we? I also want to give a shout out to Abby Cornish's really wonky accent.
Yes.
Sometimes she's Australian. Sometimes she's...
It was hard to place.
Southern. That was interesting.
Southern Australian, maybe?
Yeah.
It was hard to place because you identified it for me afterward, and I was sort of like, what accent was that? I wasn't even clear whether she was supposed to be from England or she was supposed to be from Australia or it was just deep Missouri South accent that I didn't know anything about.
You're really trying to kill me with the Missouri, aren't you? Well, the only
Every
reason...
chance I get.
I only knew the actress was Australian, so that's why I knew where it was. But it was very wonky. It was slightly distracting.
It was irregular.
I didn't really buy her. She kind of seemed like a brat. Like, I kind of didn't see what Woody Harrelson saw in her. Even though the most screen time she got was when she was, like, drunk at the end of their idyllic day at the lake. Like, yes. She was kind of bratty. And I'm like, well, is that the Chardonnay talking, or is she just a brat?
When I see a role like that, and I see a role like the secretary that you mentioned, who was a bit of a bubblehead, I wonder how much ended up on the cutting room floor.
Right.
Maybe more so with Woody Harrelson's wife's character.
Right.
That maybe would have given her a full, more appreciated role, like
right.
a better sense of who she was. Like, she just kind of popped in there and it was annoying, and then she came in at one point and confronted Frances McDormand near the end of the movie with the letter that her husband had written.
Right.
And I didn't really have a lot of sympathy for her, whereas I felt I should have.
Right. She's a widow. She's got 2 small children.
Right.
Like, her husband just, spoiler alert, took his life in an incredibly horrific, surprising manner. And, yeah. Yeah,
so I feel like maybe there was some editing there that we weren't aware of.
Right.
Some parts there that are on the cutting room floor. If they even have a cutting room floor anymore. It's like a virtual cutting room floor.
I think in Ebbing, Missouri, they probably don't. So
in Ebbing,
it probably suffered some budget cuts and
Ebbing,
which does not exist. In case we didn't mention that.
Does that represent our interest in this topic? It is Ebbing.
It is Ebbing. Aw, look at you with a play on words. Oh, so cute.
I actually didn't rehearse that. I had
wow.
I just brought that up at the top of my head.
There was actually one other point I was going to make. And
okay.
I kind of can't remember what it is right now. Except I would like to say that, there was a lot of violence against non-white guys that were used as plot devices, but they were not seen on screen. Like Sam Rockwell, the racist cop, apparently is known for torturing black people, but you don't see that. Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of set up to make him be an abhorrent person to set up his redemption arc, and clearly that is abhorrent, but the minorities that he tortured, they don't have names. You didn't get any details of the crimes. They don't have faces. They don't have voices. And the same with Frances McDormand's daughter. Like, she did get one scene where the 2 of them were arguing in a flashback, but...
Right. In a horrific flashback.
Right, but, violence against women and minorities were used as plot devices, and that was kind of the afterthought that they were to the rest of the movie. Oh, and I remembered what I was going to say. I did want Frances McDormand and Peter Dinklage, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, to get together. Because he was clearly smitten with her, even though she did not deserve it. I did want her to have a little bit of a ray of sunshine, and I was kind of sad that they didn't get together. And I understand in real life...
But that would have been a Hollywood moment, right?
That would have been a Hollywood moment, but I wanted it. I did want it because, Peter Dinklage's character was such a sweet guy.
He was a sweet guy, yeah.
And he gave her an alibi that she didn't deserve, and he held her ladder when she was putting up the billboards. And, I hate to say, like, oh, this guy did the bare minimum amount of work, so he deserves a woman out of it. But he seemed like...
He seemed like one of the few people in the movie that had a genuine heart of gold.
Right, totally.
Like Frances McDormand didn't really have a heart of
no,
gold.
Sam Rockwell didn't.
She was tortured, I understand that, but she seemed like she was a hard woman to begin with.
Right, she was a ballbuster.
And in the one flashback with her daughter,
right,
there was not a lot of change in her character from one moment to the next.
And I understand.
And her son wasn't. He seemed like he was the sweetest one of the bunch, but he still had an edge to him.
Right,
because that was his mom. I mean, his mom was edgy too.
And then plus also growing up in a household of poverty and abuse and witnessing, dad beating mom, and then mom and sis being at each other's throats, like that does a number on a fragile adolescent male psyche.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I liked the he called himself a dwarf. So
I
liked the dwarf, and I really wanted. I know it's a very Hollywood thing, but I didn't know where the movie was going at that point because it was so kind of all over the place.
Yes,
and I was like, let there be a love story. Let there be some kind of happiness in this movie. And there really kind of wasn't.
Whenever I think of Peter Dinklage, I think of Elf. Not because, obviously, the movie Elf.
Right.
Not because I think he is an elf. But I think of that movie, and I think of the character that he played in that movie. He was the angry executive who comes over the table.
Yes. Like the writer.
Will Ferrell, Miles Finch. Yes. The movie was only made 15 years ago.
That movie is 15 years old? Are you
kidding
me? Whoa. That's a topic for another podcast. We could do our favorite Hollywood holiday movies.
We could do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's 9 months from now, but we could do that.
We could have done it on St. Patrick's Day, because that's a holiday.
Oh, yeah, we could have done that. That's not the holiday I mean, but you know what I mean.
We could have done great Irish movies.
Yes. Like Circle of Friends?
Like The Brothers McMullen.
Yes.
I don't think that's actually... Yes. That's not actually Irish, but it's a good movie. We have not rehearsed this, by the way. You might not be able to tell.
So let's move on.
So Peter Dinklage has played many, many roles. He is in Avengers Infinity War.
Who's he playing in that?
It doesn't say.
So, FYI, for the 8 people who are going to listen to this, we are going, speaking of doing holiday previews, we're going to do a summer blockbuster preview.
Yeah.
And I'm dragging dots to see Avengers Infinity War on April 27th when it comes out, and so we're going to review that, and then we're going to talk about which summer blockbusters we're looking forward to. So
stay tuned for that.
Yes, so totally, as an aside.
Tease.
Yes.
Also, back to Peter Dinklage, 2018, he's got a movie coming out, which is this year. It's in post-production. It's called My Dinner with Hervé. Who does he play? Hervé Villechaize.
Oh, no way. To play,
yes.
to play.
Fantasy Island, Hervé Villechaize.
Yeah.
So it must be a biography.
Who plays Ricardo Montalban?
Well, yeah, I'm going to look it up. So, Ricardo Montalban. Andy Garcia.
No way. Oh, I think we might need to see that.
We're going to go see that one.
We are totally going to go see that.
We're going to go see that one.
Take our money, Hollywood.
So, not that there's any sort of typecasting or anything like that for Peter Dinklage, but I'm looking at the roles that he's played, and more than one is characterized as the dwarf. So, I don't know how that works.
There is a common thread here.
Yes. But, circling back.
Yes.
Miles Finch, Elf, Peter Dinklage. That's what I think of. So, he played against type because he was not the angry small man in 3 Billboards.
That's right.
He was a very sensitive, loving, caring, understanding man.
He was. She would have been lucky to end up with him.
I think so.
Based on the little we saw. So I was kind of sad because, like I said, at that point in the movie, I was like, "Wow, now we're getting like a dwarf love story," and I was there for it because I didn't know which way the movie was careening because it was so kind of all over the map.
It was kind of careening,
and then we ended up not getting a dwarf love story, and I was kind of upset. But
that was the thing. We never saw any story come to its full resolution.
Right.
We never saw spoiler alert. Never saw the crime against his daughter come to any sort of logical, happy conclusion.
Right.
We never saw Sam Rockwell's character, who is the stupid, racist cop. We never really... He didn't really have an end point.
Right.
in his journey. I mean, maybe that's representative of life, obviously.
Right.
You don't really have tidy endings, but in a movie, you sort of expect that.
Right. And then at the end, at the very, very, very end, we didn't find out if he and Frances McDormand actually drove all the way to Idaho and killed that rapist who didn't kill her daughter. Like,
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Like, they were on the road to Idaho, but they hadn't actually decided if they were going to do it yet. So
Yeah. So there are a lot of dangling threads.
Yeah. Which I actually liked the way it ended, because I felt that was consistent with the rest of the movie. Like, I didn't want to see them kick in a door in like some Idaho no-tell motel and pump him full of buckshot, but so I didn't really mind the ending, but yeah.
But it was I like those kinds of endings because they leave a lot to the imagination. You can go from there. It's like the horror movies where you don't see the scary guy.
Right.
It's much scarier in your mind than it is on screen. So the endings are the same sort of thing. It's like if you have an open-ended ending, you can sort of imagine all sorts of different things. You can imagine the way you want it, and it's perhaps a more rewarding experience rather than Hollywood saying, here's the tidy bow ending that you have.
Right.
But during the course of the movie, I think having those open-ended threads, untied threads during the course of the movie, they're a little bit more frustrating than the actual end of the movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I would say frustrating is a good word. Like I said, overall, I liked it. The storyline was interesting enough. The performances were really good. There were aspects of it that, like you said, were frustrating, but there have definitely been movies in my life, and I know there have been movies in your life where I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm not going to get that 2 hours back. And I didn't feel that way at the end of the movie. I was sitting there like, I don't really know how I feel about it, but it wasn't in a, Jesus, I wish we just would have gone to go see like A Wrinkle in Time instead, you know?
Well, we paid $11.25 a ticket for that movie.
Which I hope you save the receipt so we can write that off on our taxes.
Yes. I'm mentioning it on the air now so we can claim it.
Right.
We usually don't pay that much money for a ticket for a movie. Usually we go when it's cheaper or more than once.
Are you
when
saying
we
I'm
can.
a cheap date?
No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that it wasn't worth the $11.25. That's a pretty pricey ticket for me to pay for a movie when you can go now for $8, or you can sit at home and watch it, stream it a month later with nobody sitting beside you eating with their mouth open and making comments.
Like, you go, girl.
Yeah,
like
making comments on the screen like, oh, I saw that coming. It's like, nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares.
I did feel bad for the lady at the very end of the row who apparently decided to go to the bathroom in the last 5 minutes of the movie, and then she walked back in.
And the credits were up.
And as the credits are rolling, and she's like, wait a minute, that's it? And I'm like, really, lady? Like, did you not feel like we were getting to the end of the movie?
What happened there? You know what I thought happened there? I thought that they knew what was happening and they were getting up to leave to beat the crowd.
Yeah, I thought she was like, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm done with it, you know. And then, you know, because people do walk out of movies. It happens, you know.
Right.
But at that point, you were so far into the movie that I was like, really? You're walking out now? And then the lights go up, and then she walks back in to come and sit back down in her chair.
Well, it indicated to me that the movie was over because I thought, oh, well, the movie must be over. They're leaving. They know they love this movie. They've been here before. They've seen the ending. They know they're going to beat the traffic in our very crowded northeast town that we live in.
Right.
Just quickly before we go,
yes,
Sam Rockwell's riding the wave of success off this movie. Here are some of the movies that he has coming out. He is the one and only Ivan, which is in pre-production.
I don't know what that is.
The Best of Enemies.
I don't know what that is.
Another one called Blue Iguana. Another one called Backseat. Guess who he plays in Backseat?
Who?
George W. Bush.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
But the one I saved for last, which is in post-production right now, I want to get your take on the title of this. He plays the title character in this.
Okay.
The Adventures of Drunky. I'm not making it up. I'm not making it up.
Clearly something he signed to do before he won an Oscar.
So here, this stars Sam Rockwell, Jeffrey Tambor, Steve Coogan. So this might explain why it's a little bit delayed in the release.
Yeah.
Drunky is a barfly. This is off IMDb.
Okay.
Drunky is a barfly who finds himself in the middle of a cosmic bet between God and the devil over the fate of the earth. With his life destroyed, Drunky must travel through heaven and hell to rescue the girl he loves and save the world.
Just based on that description, I think we should probably watch that on Netflix. But you never know. We might see the trailer and be like, that looks really awesome.
You're not paying $11.25 to see that, is what you're saying?
No. I would have paid matinee prices for 3 Billboards. I don't think I'd pay matinee prices for Drunky.
The Adventures of Drunky. So that title to me says that there might be more.
We'll have to see.
The Adventures of Drunky.
I'm on the edge of my seat. Let's see.
So stay tuned for our next big podcast in which we will preview all the biggest hits. I don't know if that's going to be our next podcast, but
yeah, because Avengers: Infinity War comes out April 27th, and I really hope we do a podcast in the next 5 weeks.
Well, let's see how the numbers are.
No, let's not tie it to that, because then we'll never do another podcast ever again.
Well, we're going to come up with something to talk about next time, but until then, I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Dodds.